Sometimes the loudest places hide the deepest silences. In the dust-choked auction yard of Dry Creek, voices clashed and laughter cracked like dry wood. But one mare stood apart, head lowered, ribs sharp beneath a dull coat. They called her Barren. Worthless. A waste of feed. She didn't flinch. She had already learned how to disappear. Elias stood at the edge of the crowd, 62 and hollowed by loss. 3 years since his wife's laughter had left their small ranch. 3 years of pouring 2 cups of coffee before remembering there was no one left to hand the second to. When his eyes met the mare's, something old and familiar tightened in his chest. That look wasn't weakness. It was grief. The kind that survives. $30, Elias said, his voice steady despite the mockery that followed. The gavel fell. Silence returned. At home, he moved slowly, carefully, as if afraid she might shatter. Clean water. Fresh hay. A hand resting gently on her neck. Willow, he named her that night. Ate like she'd forgotten what safety felt like. As dusk settled, the ranch breathed differently. Not louder, just warmer. Near midnight, the quiet broke. A sound thin as thread, carried on the wind. Elias stepped onto the porch and froze. 2 foals stood at the edge of the land, starved, shaking, eyes dulled by miles of fear. Inside the barn, Willow lifted her head and cried out, a sound torn straight from the soul. When the doors opened, the reunion collapsed him to his knees. She touched them again and again, as if afraid they were ghosts. She was never barren. She had been robbed. The vet found it days later, an altered brand, scarred and hidden. Proof of theft. Buck Morrison's name surfaced like oil in water, dark and undeniable. When Buck came demanding the mare back, Elias didn't move. Love had hardened into resolve. Threats whispered through town. Fear tried to reclaim its ground. But truth travels faster than lies when it's carried by the living. The sting ended under floodlights at the old grain elevator. Sirens. Shouting. Buck in cuffs as his empire folded inward. Spring returned gently. Horses went home. Willow stayed. She gave birth beneath clean straw to a foal they named Hope. Elias stood in the barn, sunlight on his face, heart finally full. Broken things had found each other and healed. Some truths don't scream when they're buried. They wait. They breathe. And one dusty afternoon in Dry Creek, truth stood trembling on 4 thin legs while men laughed. Buck Morrison's voice cut through the auction yard like a whip. He called the paint mare Barren, useless, a joke made flesh. Laughter followed. Elias felt it like grit in his teeth. He hadn't planned to buy anything that day. His ranch was quiet now, hollowed by years since his wife's death. But when the mare lifted her head, her eyes carried a weight he recognized. Loss that had learned how to stand still. He raised his hand. The gavel fell. Cheap sale. Expensive consequence. The crime walked home that night. Long after the stars burned cold, Elias heard it. Thin hooves on gravel, breath rasping through exhaustion. 2 foals emerged from the dark, drawn by a scent stronger than fear. Inside the barn, the mare cried out, a sound raw and breaking, and when the doors opened, the lie shattered. She was never barren. She had been stripped, silenced, erased. Buck came the next morning in polished boots and practiced calm, claiming ownership with a smile too easy. The sheriff stood close, eyes averted. Power hummed between them. Elias said nothing, but the mare shifted, placing herself between the world and her young. It was enough. The vet found the scar beneath her coat, an altered brand, old and deliberate. Papers surfaced from a hidden beam, names and dates crossing state lines. Horses vanished from struggling ranches, reappearing with new marks, new stories. Buck's operation stretched wider than Dry Creek ever dared to admit. Then came the warning. A fence cut clean at dawn. Tire tracks in the mud. And the quietest blow of all, the vet's hand pausing on Willow's belly. Pregnant. Another life marked for disappearance. Elias appeared to bend, loaded an empty trailer, drove to the old grain elevator as the sky bruised purple. Buck waited with men and guns and certainty. The wind held its breath. Lights exploded across the night. Voices thundered. Badges flashed like judgment. When Buck reached for his weapon, truth finally stood up. Cuffs closed. The sheriff's silence broke into confession. By spring, horses were going home. Families were whole again. Dry Creek spoke differently now, softer, braver. Willow stayed. She gave birth beneath clean straw to a foal named Hope. Elias watched the light spill through the barn doors and felt something unburied inside himself, finally breathing free. Every morning, Elias poured 2 cups of coffee. One he drank. The other he stared at until the steam thinned and memory did the rest. The ranch woke slowly around him. Wind and dry grass, a loose gate knocking, but nothing answered back. Grief had a sound, and it lived in the quiet. 3 years since his wife was buried under cottonwoods. 3 years of doing the same things because stopping felt worse. The future felt just as empty as the house behind him. Then he saw the mare. At the auction yard, she stood apart, head low, coat dulled by neglect. Men laughed and called her useless. Elias didn't hear them. He saw the way she held herself, like someone braced for another loss. When their eyes met, something in him shifted. He bought her without thinking. Compassion moved faster than logic. He called her Willow. At the ranch, he offered water. Hey, patience. No demands. No raised voice. She ate carefully at first, like safety was a trick. Elias noticed the ribs, the scars, the quiet endurance. This wasn't weakness. It was survival. That night, the ranch didn't feel full, but it didn't feel hollow either. Near dawn, the miracle arrived on shaking legs. 2 foals emerged from the dark, drawn by scent and memory. Inside the barn, Willow's cry split the silence wide open. When she reached them, touching them again and again, Elias dropped to his knees. Motherhood reclaimed. Family found its way home. The town didn't celebrate. Whispers followed. A powerful man made claims. Fear pressed in. Elias stood between Willow and the world, choosing protection over peace. Evidence surfaced, altered brands, hidden papers. Allies stepped forward quietly, bravely. Courage grew like light at the edge of a storm. The night everything changed came heavy and red with sunset. Trucks, guns. A standoff thick with breath held too long. Sirens broke the spell. Arrests followed. As handcuffs closed, a new cry rose from the barn. A foal born into straw and lamplight. Life arriving as justice fell. Seasons turned. Scout and Ranger grew strong. Willow rested easy. Elias remarried under the cottonwoods. Laughter returning where silence once ruled. Hope grew tall on 4 steady legs. One morning, Elias poured 2 cups of coffee again. This time, a hand reached for the second. Not habit, gratitude.